Hi, welcome to the AIM on MS&T podcast. If this is your first time listening to our podcast, first off, welcome. We are happy to have you. Second, AIM stands for Academia, Industry, and Military, which are the main sectors that make up Central Florida's modeling, simulation, and training community. On our podcast, we talk with different leaders in the MS&T community. We also talk about all the cool and innovative things their organizations are doing, trends that affect the MS&T field as a whole, and keep you up to date with what's going on. If you're not a part of the modeling and simulation community, we hope to share some insight about this important sector of Orlando's economy, which ranks just behind the theme park and hospitality industries. I'm your host, Kate Finkel, and today we're talking to Yvonne Martinez, Chief of the Training and Simulation Division and the Director of the Simulation and Training Technology Center, also known as STTC. To start us off, can you please tell our audience about yourself? How did your path lead you to where you are now?
Okay, well, thanks for the invite and for having me. I think it's a good opportunity for us to, here in Team Orlando, to kind of tell us about our organizations and what we do. So appreciate the opportunity.
Of course.
But, again, my name is Yvonne Martinez. Started my career in the government right after college. Mm-hmm. I'm a graduate from the University of Puerto Rico, the Maya West campus. Mechanical engineer, and then I have a master's from Catholic University of America out of Washington, D.C., same mechanical engineering as well. Right after that, I joined the Army as a civilian down at the Night Vision Labs in Fort Belvoir, Virginia. As an engineer, I started working on simulation and modeling efforts early on. We did countermine system simulations, we did blast effects simulations, the effects of blasts on ground vehicles, for example. After that, I was promoted to branch chief of simulation applications branch, where we ran or developed models for EOIR sensors or electro-optics and infrared sensors. We also supported the development of new equipment training for the PMs in the area. And after that, I was promoted to Deputy Director of the Modeling and Simulation Division. Mm-hmm. And we were responsible for providing modeling and simulation services to, at that time, the Directorate. Then about 15 years ago, I saw an opportunity here in Orlando, and I was recruited to be the Deputy Director of the Simulation Training Technology Center. And then back in 2020, I was promoted to be the Director of the organization.
Thank you for a little insight into your story and background. Now, can you tell us about your organization, STTC, how it got started and its background? And how would you describe the mission of STTC and how has it evolved over the years?
So the STTC started about 30 years ago. It started with it was originally part of the tech base, or it was known as the tech base under PM Trade, under what STRICOM, which is the old Simulation and Training Command. Mm-hmm. At the time, it was probably about 5 people. So it's a really small organization with very, very little funding. What was key for them at that time was the partnerships that they established with Team Orlando, in particular with UCF ISD. And they had a big partnership also with DARPA. DARPA stands for Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. DARPA had a lot of funding, so that allowed the tech base or the beginnings of the STTC to be able to start with some funding.
Right.
What basically happened is that they were able to work with DARPA and IST towards the development of new simulation technology that at the time didn't exist. Part of those developments included the DIS standard, or Distributed Interactive Simulation Standard, HLA. HLA stands for High Level Architecture. And also MOTSAF, which now is OneSAF, but it's basically one of the big Army constructive simulations. What that investment and that partnership allowed them to do was to take simulators that didn't communicate with each other at the time. So you had a helicopter simulator and a tank simulator, but they wouldn't interact with each other. And through the standard and through the constructive simulation allowed for distributed simulation exercises to take place. So it's basically the internet for the simulation world. It allowed for simulators to talk to each other. Significant improvement, and all of those developments still exist today and are still being used today. From there, The organization continued to grow until what it is today. We're about 60 government civilians, all technical people, a lot of experience, high technical backgrounds. 75% of the workforce has a master's or PhD degree, all dedicated to the development, the maturing, and the transition of technology to enhance soldier training.
With all that being said, what is your current role as the director, and what are your top priorities right now?
Yeah, so as the director, I'm responsible for, all aspects of the organization. The top priorities are aligned with the four main areas that, I believe I'm responsible for: the personnel, the technical program, our finances, and our facility. So personnel, we're trying to make sure that we recruit, really good employees, especially in these key areas like artificial intelligence and technology areas that we see that have broad application, especially in training, and then be able to develop those employees to be technical experts in their areas. Then we also focus on the technical program, and it's not just on developing innovative technology, but also being able to transition that technology to a program so that it can be fielded and be used by a soldier. The technical program, not only the development of innovative technology, but also the transition of the technology. For us, if it gets created in the lab, it's good. If we create new technology that it's innovative, that's great. If we have high standard technical papers, that's also good. But the technology has to have a place where it can get to a system that the soldier gets their hands on. And for that, our collaboration and partnership with PEO's TRI is key. The financial execution, the focus is really the efficient execution of our funds. And then the facility itself is having a state-of-the-art environment for people to work on that is all focused on technology development for the soldier.
So going into a little more detail, how does STTC fit into the broader Army modernization and readiness strategy?
Yeah, so that's critical, right? For the last 5 years or so, the STTC has been realigning their efforts to support the modernization priorities of the Army. In particular, the synthetic training environment, or ST. So we've aligned our S&T to basically align with the program of record, the ST program of record, and its needs. And in particular, those areas where there's hard technical gaps that need to be solved. One example, for example, is the development of high-resolution insets for one-world terrain. The program of record is mostly focused on satellite data and a base globe representation so that it can support the different, game-based training applications. Our focus has been mostly on the development of these higher resolution insets that are collected from drones and the processing of that data so that it's automated and it doesn't need a lot of input from humans. The whole idea is to reduce the amount of time it takes for processing data so that it can be ready for training as quickly as possible, and then we don't waste a significant amount of funding on that side of things, a lot of manual processes that we don't have to do. And for that, artificial intelligence is one good example of technology that's allowed us to significantly improve the amount of time that it takes to process data. We also have support to the next generation combat vehicle modernization priority. And in that case, what we're trying to do is develop an architecture that will allow us to do embedded training. Embedded training is the idea that you can train within your platform. You don't have to go to a specialized classroom or facility to get trained on. You get assistance or the ability to train either individual training or team training with the other units or the other vehicles within your vehicle. So for the last few years, we've been implementing training architecture for embedded training that is currently giving us up to 40% improvement human performance or soldier performance in this case. So those are two good examples of how we support modernization priorities in the Army.
So now, on an exciting note, you are celebrating the 20-year anniversary of the SFC Paul Ray Smith Simulation and Training Technology Center. Can you talk about the soldier for whom the center was named after and why?
Yeah, so Paul Ray Smith was a combat engineer that was deployed to the Gulf War and was in charge of developing a holding area for prisoners where they got surrounded by a much larger enemy force. They started firing against Paul and his unit. They did take some hits and some injured. He realized the urgency of the situation and asked his unit to take cover behind a vehicle, a disabled vehicle. It's a Bradley that was sitting in the courtyard. Paul then jumped on top of the Bradley and took a hold of the largest weapon system they had. It's a 50 millimeter machine gun, and started returning fire. What he was able to do was to stop the attack and in the process save the lives of his fellow soldiers. He lost his life, and for that he was awarded the Medal of Honor. At the STTC, we recognized Paul and named a building after him. For us, it's an honor, it's a privilege to honor such a brave person. And we remember him every time we walk in the building. And we say Paul lives, and his spirit is alive at the STTC. So that's kind of who Paul is and what he means to us. He's also a Florida native. That's part of the reason we selected him. Plus, his story was just such an incredible story. And also, he was very focused on training. He would get on his unit, the rest of the soldiers in his unit, about the training and making sure that they got their training, because when needed, the handy would come in handy. So that's who Paul is for us.
Switching topics, can you share an example of a breakthrough training solution recently developed or fielded?
Yeah, so I'll tell you a little bit about several, and I'll finish with the most recent one.
Okay.
But going back to the development of the Oculus Rift, which was an effort that there's the Institute for Creative Technology's university-affiliated research center. It's an organization that works. We do the program management for this organization. They're located out of LA, and they're associated with the University of Southern California. At the time, actually the PEO went and talked to them about issues with headsets. They were too big, too expensive. Field of view was too narrow, and challenged them to come up with a better solution. They had a postdoc and some researchers working on what then became Oculus Rift. That was, at the time, a revolution for headset technology. That technology was sold to Meta, or to Facebook at the time, for about $2 billion. And it's still in use today. It's the Meta VR headset. So that's one great example of a revolution that came out of the lab, in this case with our partnership with the ICT, or the Institute for Creative Technologies. We also had, a little bit after that, development of augmented reality training technologies, and a demonstration that we had at the lab on how to use augmented reality to do dismounted soldier training. Turned out to lead to the development of the IVES and the SIVT programs. These are systems that the Army are still currently investing on. Significant new capabilities for the Army that all originated in the lab. Part of it's in Night Vision Labs, part of it was at the STTC, but the combination of those two technology efforts that were happening at the time led to what is now IVES and SIVT. We also had a lot of significant contributions in the medical training area. We've been involved with medical simulation training devices for a long time. And we took it from a soldier having to go to a medical facility to get training and very costly systems to now a number of mannequin solutions, or what we call medical part task trainers, game solutions where the technology has evolved so much and the work that the guys in the lab have taken off so much that thousands of soldiers are now both medics and non-medics trained on medical saving life procedures. And then lastly, or more recent, our cyber work is probably the highlight. It's more than cyber. It includes information warfare. It includes also electromagnetic warfare simulation. But the cyber work was lacking in the Army simulation environments. We couldn't do offensive or defensive cyber attacks, or we didn't have the ability to be able to react to any of those. The guys in the lab have been developing a cyber capability so that we can now do that in Army simulations. And so far, the demand is super high. The software has been transitioned to the OneSAF program of record and to the PCTE program of record. The PCTE is the Persistent Cyber Training Environment. So very proud of all the accomplishments of all the people at the STTC, and just, the contributions in my mind are just incredible.
One of the big topics in the industry currently is AI. With that being said, how are you integrating AI or machine learning into simulation environments?
Yes. So AI is a disruptive technology. It has broad application, and the impact right now is almost limitless. For us, AI has been key. From bringing people that understand AI, that can code AI, and that can just understand what maybe a contractor is delivering. So one example would be the development of smart enemy behaviors. So it used to be that enemy behaviors in a simulation were scripted. So what that did was it made them predictable. So a soldier that was maybe running a simulation would always know that after an explosion, the enemy was going to have certain behaviors. With AI, we can develop smart enemies that react in unpredictable ways, that challenge our soldiers to learn and to try to see how to outsmart them. Well, that's a big difference from scripted behaviors.
Yeah, for sure.
Another example, we use machine vision for evaluating the performance of soldiers while conducting tasks. So an example of that is a soldier who is applying a medical procedure in the field. The camera and the machine vision that is behind it is looking at the soldiers, at his hands, at the task that the soldier is performing, and it can evaluate whether the soldier is performing the task correctly or not. This makes a big difference because I don't need an instructor behind you watching what you're doing all the time. The AI can be that mentor, that instructor,
right,
and correct your errors as you're conducting those tasks. It can also be used for after-action reviews so that your unit commander can look at your actions and see whether you did your actions correctly or not. We can also apply it for teams. And for example, if you have a room clearance operation, there could be cameras that are looking at the team trying to do a room clearance. Well, the AI or the machine vision can determine if the spacing between the soldiers is correct, how long did it take to clear the room, where was your weapon pointing, where were you looking, and it can make determinations or predictions about team performance. So those are just all, very good applications of AI and machine vision that we're trying to exploit.
How does STTC foster collaboration across military, industry, and academia?
So many different ways. One strong collaboration that we have is with DARPA. This has been going on for many, many years, and it goes back to investments that created the distributed interactive simulation standard that we still use today. We have a group of engineers and technical experts that support DARPA that just do an incredible job. As a matter of fact, last year they were awarded the Agent of the Year award by DARPA. One collaboration that we see that it has a lot of potential and that we want to continue into the future. One good one is a CRADA. It's a cooperative research and development agreement, and it basically allows for industry or academia to work with the government in a non-funded basis. So the industry partner is interested in developing technology A, and the government partner is also interested in doing the same thing. So they all commit to work together without exchanging funds. For industry to approach us about a CRADA is simple, right? First is just getting a hold of us. And then you have to be able to articulate what is the technology that you are proposing to develop in collaboration with the government. If there's a match where the government is interested in that technology area and industry is interested as well, then we have to identify the personnel that will be in charge of running that on the government side, the personnel on the industry side, and then develop this CRADA agreement together. CRADA agreement is not very complex. It's just a few pages where we lay out what the industry partner is going to do and what the government is responsible for. Sometimes it could be work and labor for both sides. Sometimes it could be the industry partner is interested in using lab space on the government side or specialized equipment. So it takes many different flavors. That would be the basic mechanics of it. A second way is through maybe the SBIR and STTR program. STTR stands for Small Business Technology Transfer, that are focused on innovation and helping industry or academia commercialize products. And then you have funded activities. For us, we use the most the broad agency announcement, or BAA. And this is where we advertise the challenges that we're having or that we're trying to solve. And then industry will submit proposals against that BAA or ideas against that BAA on how to solve those problems. In addition, you have the local collaboration type initiatives. Tech Grove is one where we go and listen to maybe solutions from industry. We find areas that we can collaborate on, and we use that structure to facilitate that collaboration. And then you have big events like ITSEC, where we all meet each year, and we try to see and understand what every organization is working on, which is critical because we don't want to duplicate. We want to try to take advantage or leverage each other's work.
On the topic of collaboration, how do you work with the other members of Team Orlando, and can you discuss some of the collaboration projects that you have worked on together? Can you also talk about why the collaboration is so important to ensure the warfighters have the training they need?
Yeah, so in the Army side, there's three organizations in Team Orlando that are focused on Army problems, right? The STTC, the TCFT, or cross-functional team, and PEO STRI. We are the S&T arm of that equation. The TCFT develops the requirements, and PEO STRI is the acquisition developer or the material developer. We have to work hand in hand to either, from the STTC side, help the TCFT to understand where the technology is so that they can then turn that into a requirement that makes sense. And in the case of PEO STRI, we transition technology to the PEO to include into their programs and into their fielded solutions. Outside of the Army, with the other services, sometimes we use and leverage some of their technology. For example, we have a model, GPS satellite model that we use from the Air Force. It's called the Giant model. It's one of those examples of why would the Army develop its own model when the Air Force has already developed something that meets the requirement. So it's important that we kind of see and track what each other is doing. And then with UCF as a team player there, again, we have a long-standing relationship with UCF, in particular with the Institute for Simulation and Training. We also take advantage of the advanced degrees at UCF in the area of modeling and simulation, both the master's and the PhD. We hire faculty, we hire people that graduates from UCF into our staff. We also hire faculty members to test training solutions or develop hand-in-hand with us training solutions in the lab. We currently have maybe 20 to 30 UCF employees in the building working on live training technology and embedded training technology for the next generation combat vehicles. Why it's important is just the same thing, right? We're not the only people working in this area. We have to leverage each other's work. Funding is limited. So if we find solutions that can be applied to all the services, that gives you some efficiencies and some gains. And, for us, participating in EXEC every year is probably the one place where we all come together and can see what each other is doing and can have those discussions about where collaborations need to exist.
Following that up, the STTC was originally part of the Army Command STRICOM, now known as PEO STRI. How does your mission support the current organization's mission to provide training and testing simulation technology to our warfighters? Please tell us how you work together to solve some of those technology challenges and requirements. Do you work closely with any of the other military organizations that are also here in Orlando?
Yeah, primarily with PEO STRI. PEO STRI is critical for us. Originally, my lab, the Simulation and Training Technology Center, was actually part of PEO STRI, or at the time STRICOM. And it came out of the PM Trade Program Manager Office. And at the time, it was known as the Tech-Based organization that was fairly small, about 5 employees, with a very limited budget. But the collaboration with STRI for us is key. They are our primary transition partner. We develop technology that transitions into programs of record so that the capability that the soldier gets at the end of the day is an enhanced one. It's a more advanced capability. With PEO STRI, we work with every year to develop a process by which we identify gaps, we prioritize those gaps, and then we realign our programs to support those gaps that were identified. In addition, we have transition agreements where we agree on what technology we're going to transition, the timeline of the technology transition, and then we have to communicate in a yearly basis, weekly basis in some cases, to make sure that the technology is maturing, that we're all in sync, that we understand what the status of the technology is, and that we have a good plan forward to transition it. In addition to that, we also have an embedded matrix support team. This is a group of technical people, engineers that are embedded in the programs of record that are there to support the development of the technology, and as well as identify additional gaps that we need to invest in.
Are there any upcoming programs or initiatives you're especially excited about?
Yeah, and that's a hard one because I don't want to leave anyone out, and I don't want to let anyone feel that they're more important than others. But I'm excited about many things that we're working on. Some of the One World Terrain or the geospatial terrain development efforts that we got going on in the future, we're looking at just changes to the terrain databases, not redoing entirely a terrain database. That to me is exciting because it saves a lot of time and it can maintain the currency of your terrain information. Medical is doing some really interesting things to provide surrogate devices for live training type environments. There's a number of different very exciting things. Cyber is also just doing really great things. And information warfare, how do you deal with information warfare? How do you react to it? How does it affect your operational tactical side of things? A lot of exciting work. I'm looking forward to the latest advances in augmented reality glasses and the potential that has to Army training. If you can imagine just having a regular set of glasses that have the processing power to, provide you with military advice, show you how to disassemble your weapon, show you how to, for example, provide some maintenance to some equipment, be able to download One World Terrain and transport you to a different geographical location and do mission rehearsal before you go and travel to that location to do your task, or conduct with your team training events where you're seeing virtual characters in your scene and you're engaging them with your weapons and you're doing a room clearance operation in a glass type device. It's going to be very, very useful for us and Army training.
Yeah, definitely.
So what we're trying to do is watch out what the advances that are coming around the corner. Seeing the work that Meta has done with their Orion headset, or I call them headset, but eyeglasses basically. The same with Google and Apple, and seeing where that technology is going, and then how can we quickly adapt it or apply it to Army training.
So we are getting to the end. One question we like to conclude with on our podcast is, what advice would you offer someone who is considering going into a similar career path? In particular, what would you tell someone that you wish someone had told you when you were deciding your future career?
Got it. So tough times right now in the federal government. We're going through a transition period. Funding reductions are impacting everyone. There are also personnel reductions. There's also merging of organizations to gain some efficiencies. These are hard times, but I think that once things stabilize, we will have an environment where, if you love technology, the research side of the services, both across the Army or Navy or Air Force, just provide you an environment where you can really enjoy and apply technology in a way that will make a difference to someone higher than yourself. So I can tell you what I would not tell them, and it's my personal experience. So in high school, my counselor there told me that my math grades were too low for me to be an engineer. When I started working in the government, a director told me, forget thinking that you're going to do any technical work in this organization. So it's almost like, and in a way, it helped me because
like motivation.
I'm not going to let you tell me what to do. But you have your own sail, and you decide the direction that you want to take in your life. It's up to you. You're going to tell people things. Don't discourage them. Encourage them.
That's some great advice. Before we sign off, where should our listeners go to find out more about STTC?
I think the Team Orlando website, but if you search for Team Orlando STTC, it should take you to it. In there, we'll have more information about who we are, our mission, our programs, and we'll make sure that information is all up to date. In addition, we just published a history book for the organization. It basically lays out everything that I've talked about today in way more detail, and it's something that we put together to preserve the contributions of everyone that came before us and to make sure that it's not forgotten. I'll try to post that book if it's possible in the website. To me, that would be a great resource. If you're interested in the STTC, it's a wonderful organization with wonderful people that is making a good, big contribution to simulation and training for the Army soldiers.
For everyone listening, to stay up to date on future events in the modeling and simulation community, check out our website, teamorlando.org. You'll also find us on LinkedIn, X, and Facebook for more recent news and upcoming events. If you're interested in sponsoring an episode of AIM on MS&T or being a featured guest, please reach out to Team Orlando News. The link will be below. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to follow AIM on MS&T podcast on your platform of choice, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye!